Week 9 of the fantasy football season, and here's a few plays I look to buy and trade for this week. The first guy, Aaron Jones of the Green Bay Packers. It's been a rough season here for Aaron Jones, no doubt about it, with the hamstring injury and just underperformance. So right now we know Jones is a talented running back, no doubt about it. I know he's been up there in age and a lot of miles on his body, and possibly the best days could be behind him. But right now, one of the better receiving backs out of the backfield, I believe, here is Aaron Jones. And this Packer team, their offense has to get off to better starts. They've been starting off slow so far early and going, and they got to establish the run. So the last two games here for Jones, like I said, he hasn't done much. Week 7 at Denver, 8 carries, 35 yards, 3 catches, 22 yards. And Week 8 versus Minnesota, another down game, 7 catches, 29 yards, 4 catches, 17 yards. So right now, Jones not playing good football, not getting the job done. But I think he could turn things around. And this Packer team, they just got to reestablish things a little bit. So right now, while he hasn't done much this season, here's Jones. Besides Week 1, he's a perfect buy low play. This week, the next guy, Tony Pollard of the Dallas Cowboys, very disappointing, especially the last 4 or 5 weeks here for Pollard. He was a first-round, second-round pick in most fantasy drafts going into the season. And Pollard, his points have gone down every week from Week 1 all the way to Week 5. Then Week 6, he had a little burst. And then Week 8 versus the Rams, we didn't see much. 12 carries, 53 yards, a catch 2 yards. So the Cowboys, they got off to a quick start in that one. It was the CeeDee Lamb show. Then DaRon Bland had a pick 6 in that one. And the game got out of hand for the most part. When the fourth quarter, the Cowboys were sitting the starters in the offense and the bench came in. So right now, like I said, Tony Pollard, the numbers haven't been there pretty much the last 4 or 5 weeks of the season. And this Cowboy team, it's either been they got blown out this season or blowing teams out. They really haven't played in a close game besides the Week 6 game at the Los Angeles Chargers. So right now, while Tony Pollard hasn't done much and we know he has great talent, the games have been out of hand for this Cowboy team, and Pollard's numbers haven't been there, even though we didn't know the potential and talent. He's a buy low play this week. Next guy is Alexander Mattison of the Minnesota Vikings. So right now with Kirk Cousins out, Alexander Mattison, I think they're going to run the football a little bit more, is this Minnesota Viking team. I know Alexander Mattison, he looked horrible in that Week 8 loss at the Green Bay Packers. 16 carries, 31 yards, not even 2 yards a carry in that one, and a catch in 2 yards. And Cam Akers looked better in that one. But right now with Kirk Cousins out, he's going to run the football more. He is Alexander Mattison. He's going to get more opportunities, a lot of screens and dump-offs. And this Minnesota Viking offense, obviously, as a whole, is going to take a big hit. But like I said, I think they're going to run the football a lot and a lot of underneath and short passes. So right now, while Mattison hasn't really done much over the last few weeks here, he's a perfect buy low because I think the workload's going to go up. And they're going to try to force feed the running backs between him and Akers, is this Minnesota Viking team. Next play is Bijan Robinson of the Atlanta Falcons. I've mentioned Robinson a lot over the last few weeks here. And once again, only 11 touches in this one, 62 yards and a touchdown and no catches, surprisingly, where Robinson's one of the better receiving back out of the backfield. So right now, his numbers haven't been great, but it was Taylor Heinicke coming into the game. And to be honest, that offense looked better with Taylor Heinicke in there for this Atlanta Falcon team. They moved the football down the field quicker. He got it to his wide receivers in that game. And it gave Bijan Robinson a chance to run one in within the red zone. So right now, Robinson, the last few weeks, Week 5 versus Houston, 11. Week 6 versus Washington, 13. Week 7 was the illness game where he was a decoy and only had 1 carry, 3 yards. And then the 12-20. So right now, I think they got to get Bijan Robinson the football a little bit more. I know he's a rookie, and so far the numbers haven't been all that great, but he's still been a serviceable running back. And I believe if they go to the switch here with Taylor Heinicke, this offense could be better, and it'll open things up more for him. So right now, well, his numbers have been on down side a little bit here. He's a guy to buy low this week. Next play is Chris Olave of the New Orleans Saints. So Chris Olave, he was a second, third round pick in most fantasy drafts. And the numbers, they haven't been horrible, but they also haven't been eye-popping. His best game of the season, going back to Week 1, 8 catches, 112 yards in that game for Chris Olave. So 2 games on the season over 100 yards. The rest, he's pretty much been 80, 90 yards per game. But the last 2 weeks, we really haven't seen much here from Olave. Week 7 versus Jacksonville, 7 catches, 57 yards. And Week 8 at the Colts, a quiet one, 5 catches, 46 yards. So Week 9 here, great matchup versus the Chicago Bears, where they get torched each and every week. They get no pressure on the quarterback. One of the worst teams in the league, sacking the quarterback. And right now, I think this offense with Derek Carr is going to have all day to throw the football, and Chris Olave is going to get open and start making plays. So like I said, over the last 2 weeks, the numbers really haven't been there this is a perfect time to go out there and buy Olave, because if he breaks out in this game, his value is going to go up once again, and you're going to have to pay more to get him. So right now, while he's on the downslide the last 2 weeks, he's a player to buy. The next play is Patrick Mahomes of the Kansas City Chiefs. I know it's a little bit far-fetched here to buy Patrick Mahomes cheap. After in Week 7, he went for a monster game, 424 pass yards, 4 touchdowns, and an intel. But Week 8 at Denver, they bottled them up. They got a hand on him early and often making plays with this Denver Bronco defense. Very impressive, no doubt about it. And we know, though, Mahomes, he wasn't 100% with an illness. Supposedly having the flu, 241 pass yards, 2 INTs, 20 rush yards, and a fumble loss. So 3 turnovers in a game for Mahomes, obviously very uncharacteristic. You're going to have to still pay a premium price, but obviously after coming a game where he only scored 5.60 fantasy points here, Mahomes, this would be the only time pretty much to go out there and buy him low. So right now, after coming off one of the worst games of his NFL career, is Patrick Mahomes. This is a time to buy him low, but like I said, you're still going to pay a big price to get him on your roster, but not as much as you would have, obviously, 2-3 weeks ago for Mahomes. And the final play I look to buy and trade for is Ramondre Stevenson of the New England Patriots. The running back's a very weak position this season in fantasy football. A lot of injuries, a lot of players underperforming, and Stevenson, he's been a player up and down this season. I know Week 6 and 7, good games. Week 6 at Vegas, 18. Week 7 versus Buffalo in that one, 14.5. But then Week 8 at Miami, a bad game, 10 carries, 39 yards, 2 catches, 11 yards. But Stevenson, like I said, one of the better receiving backs out of the backfield as well. Running back's been a weak position, and he's still a starting running back in this league. So right now, like I said, his numbers have been underwhelming. He was the second, third rounder in most fantasy drafts. He is Stevenson. And right now, he's not even within the top 15 at the position in points. So while he's struggling, he's a player I look to buy and trade for this week. So that's a few plays I look to buy and trade for here in Week 9 of the fantasy football season.